Effect, the podcast where you get to be a part of the conversation with your friends without having to contribute. Today, we are talking about Attack of the B-Movies, best and worst of sci-fi. So you might want to get a cold beverage for this one. I've got one. It's Bellingham Cider Company Cucumber Lime.
Whoa, that sounds pretty nice. All I grabbed was a Soleil.
Whoa.
It's like a LaCroix, but it's double the flavor. So it's, 1/8 the flavor of normal things.
Sure.
But if I need to get a fancy drink, I might make that happen. I think I got a pub beer hiding in the fridge.
It's up to you because of the subject matter. You know, it may drive you to drink. I don't know. It's a thing.
Okay, so B movies. Yeah, so I have an interesting approach to them. I immediately got overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like, it was weirdest thing. It's like, we're doing B sci-fi movies, and I'm like, do I know B sci-fi movies? I'm a huge sci-fi fan. I'm a fan of all the things that are sci-fi and magic and fantasy, but I also recognize that I am not a cult fan. I am a general fan. I'm a fandom guy. I used to term myself a geek rather than a nerd in a lot of things, because it means I know a lot about different fandoms. Like I could dive into Star Wars pretty heavily, but I don't know the Star Wars books. I'm not a nerd about Star Wars, so I don't really have all of the history and all the back lore. I have everything that gets me through society.
Right.
So like all of the con information that gets me through society, as long as I'm not encountering nerds, I can float the entire con. I can go everywhere from Batman to Babylon 5. Like I've got a span. And when you said B sci-fi movies, I was like, oh shit, is he talking cult films versus crappy B sci-fi films? So I had to assume that I knew what I was talking about, and also recognize, again from last week, there's some shit that I've never heard of and seen before, and you have an eclectic collection of bad sci-fi films.
I do. So the question is, do you have some movies that you want to talk about?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Great. Okay, so let me establish some rules here. Now that you have done all the work. Okay. So you're right. This is kind of a difficult thing to nail down. And when we get to horror, oh my God, we're gonna have to. We're really
you're gonna have to set me up like a couple of weeks in advance to catch up a little bit.
Well,
make sure I'm on the right page.
We also really need to define some rules about what exactly we want to talk about. So, and here's what I mean. So with sci-fi, oftentimes zombie movies fall into the category of sci-fi.
Okay, sure, because it's fiction.
So, Resident Evil is technically a government experiment or a corporate experiment thing. So that could be sci-fi. Same with Return of the Living Dead. There's kind of a science-y aspect to that.
There were several cable stations that always combined sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. That was like one genre for them for a long time. So I totally get that.
So no zombie movies.
Great.
Generally. No creature features.
Okay.
So we're going to rule out mutants, and we're going to rule out giant fucking animals and vermin and Godzilla and all of that. Like we're not going to go there. That's its own thing, really.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's plenty of sci-fi that, think about. For some reason, the first movie that comes to mind of schlocky sci-fi is Them. It's the old 50s giant ants.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So we're not going there either.
Okay. So not those. Got it.
Yeah. So not creature features. Kind of was thinking if it's aliens, it's probably okay.
Mm-hmm.
If it's in space
sci-fi.
if it's in space with a spaceship, or if it's on Earth and it's aliens, that can count. Let's see here. What else? So I have some movies on my list that are questionable for being on the list, in my opinion. because
You put them on the list, you're like, maybe.
yeah, I am.
Okay.
And I think because this is a thing that people have opinions on. Like this is I put it out there on my social medias, and oh my God, everybody had ideas about what was the best and the worst. It was really good to sort of see what was in their consciousness.
Is that where you got your rules? Because after you just gave me your rules, I was like, oh shit, have I seen a movie? Just like ruled out, not these, not these, not these.
No.
Okay,
I actually didn't come up with the rules based on the social media posts. I came up with the rules because of my own, like being overwhelmed by like, oh my God, how do we narrow this down? And how do we like talk about something that actually makes, there's too many, and there's too many movies to talk about, even especially once we get to like horror. I mean, that,
right.
Like I say, so a sub genre of that is monster movies, creature features, like the big, giant, big ass spider, whatever, Kingdom of the Spiders, lots of vermin, all that kind of let's not do that in this one. So with that in mind, we have space. Also, end of the world stuff. Generally like
apocalypse films,
like Mad Max and stuff. I'm questionable about that. I'm questionable about like natural disaster movies, and kind of feel like we kind of need to.
Well, let's start small and we'll expand out if we need to.
Yeah.
So we'll see if Waterworld makes it, or The Postman.
Waterworld won't make it, and the reason is because there's also, we have to layer in a kind of a budgetary, and where was this in the consciousness of the general public at the time?
Oh God damn it! I'm gonna need a drink for this. Okay.
And I'm sorry,
it's a lot of rules.
It's a lot of rules, but when you get into some of the movies that I'm talking about, you'll see exactly what I mean.
Okay.
So some of these are like, okay, yeah, I remember maybe this went into the theaters, but it was really kind of one of those direct-to-video things. And maybe it gained a following after that. But, I mean, honestly, it wasn't that big in the box office. Kind of
which is kind of where my mind was originally going with the B sci-fi films. Several of them may still actually have real stars or real actors, and maybe even had a bit of a film budget behind it. It just didn't succeed very well, or it just didn't get its plot across, and it didn't turn into Star Wars or Star Trek or and into the big ETs or anything like that. All right. I feel a little bit more confident now.
Okay. So I'm gonna pick one that I want to start with, and I think this is on. So the other one is like sword and sandal thing, right? So
sure.
Like that's its own thing, but there's a lot of movies that could be sci-fi that kind of really do belong in the sword and sandal.
I mean, there's a reason that all of these got glommed together. There's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
When you really think about it, like you will find a lot of sci-fi movies that could also technically be a horror film or a comedy horror film, right? As those blend in. So I get it. Like I said, we'll start small.
Yeah. So one that I'm on the fence here, you named, I still feel like it's probably sci-fi though, is Flash Gordon.
Yeah. Right. And that was where my head was like immediately going to. That was the number one pick that I had that showed up.
Yeah. Yeah. Flash Gordon is like, I was way too young, so I'd have no idea what it did at the box office. Of course, I have Google and I didn't research that, but, but I know my experience with it, and it kind of fell into the same category as a few of the other movies on my list here. That sort of became, definitely cult classics, but was it a good movie? No, it was not. No, not at all. It
not
was
even
not
by 1980 standards. I think it was not a good movie.
No, but it is a fun movie, and some may disagree with that, and that's fine. I loved it. It's on my awesome list. It might be on your shit list. It's cool.
For real. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like an unwatchable list.
Like
There is that.
We're good friends, but I'm not going to lie to you. I love you too much to let you know that I actually like Flash Gordon. Friends don't let friends watch Flash Gordon more than once.
It's fair, but Queen, man. Queen.
There was a lot of Queen. It's valid.
Flash.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, it's iconic for sure, right? Cult following, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good movie, no.
But
it was, like you said, it was a full adventure. It told the whole story. It got through. The really, really bad ones just like lost money, or their editor quit or something. Like they fall apart, and those all end up on Mystery Science Theater. That's where that show like
there's a lot of that.
Blossomed.
Yeah. Okay, so the number one movie that comes to mind with like, what is the best sci-fi B movie level here? And I'm going to start with Ice Pirates.
Wow. Okay.
So Ice Pirates is 1984 and it has space herpes. So yeah, I mean,
I'm just silent nodding, waiting for you to sell me on space herpes and why this is so
well,
great.
I'm not selling you on anything. It's amazing. Have you seen it? First off, have you seen Ice Pirates?
You know what? When I saw your post on Facebook and I saw the people that were listing things, and I think you put Ice Pirates as number one. You're like, this is what I'm thinking. And a lot of people started following up on the genre behind you. And I looked at it and was like, oh, I've totally seen that one, right? And I was like going through the process and thinking about it as I scrolling through your list a bit later on. It was like the next day I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm thinking of Time Bandits.
Yeah,
which is great, and it totally fits in this. By the way, it absolutely is a B sci-fi, but it was not Ice Pirates, and so I had to go back and go like, "Oh shit, have I actually seen Ice Pirates?" And recognize that was one that I had not seen. So tell me more about it.
So Ice Pirates is definitely, I think, one of those movies that does exactly that. You get confused for other movies that were in a similar vein. So this starred Robert Ulrich, okay, a young badass Robert Ulrich. And I mean, it's up there, and I mean, it does like a pretty good like spaceship, and they've got creature effects, and you know, it was fun, and they had some action. It was campy. They knew what they were doing. I think they knocked it out of the park. But there are movies on this list.
You said Robert Ulrich, but you completely failed to mention Angelica Houston.
Oh yeah, I did, didn't
Holy
I?
shit.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean,
I just pulled up cast pictures and I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, well, and Ron Perlman is in
a
there.
Super young Ron Perlman, by the way.
Yeah. Angelica Houston was hot. Yeah, so it's a good cast. John Carradine is in it.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah. It's on my recommend list for sure. You know, as far as like B movie sci-fi that you're gonna have a good time.
So how many times have you seen Ice Pirates?
Oh my God. More than 10, less than 20.
Okay, that's a lot. That's all. And you consider it to be rewatchable more than 10 times?
Absolutely.
Okay. Why?
I still love that movie.
Is it nostalgia? Is it a nostalgia thing that you love
think
about
so.
it? Okay.
I think so. I mean, so you got to understand that when I was a kid, so 1984, I would have been 6. I probably didn't see it in 1984. I'm pretty sure I didn't. I probably saw it 3 or 4 years later. So 10-ish. So like 3rd to 4th grade. That's about the time. 4th grade is when I got into Freddy Krueger.
Okay.
So this is about the time that my grandmother and I would watch all these shitty movies together. She would watch anything with me. She would watch. That's why we're going to get into 80s action B movies, because she watched those fucking things with me, and it was awesome. she was not so much into the creature stuff. So she let that me. I went down into the basement and watched those. But she would still at the video store, she would still rent them for me. I mean, I would go buy box art and I would pick something out and hand her to the thing, and she'd like, okay, no questions asked.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a grandmother you love.
That's an awesome grandma right there. Yeah, that's rad.
So Ice Pirates, I think, is just, it's one of those that it was kind of like this adventure. It was funny. It was something that I'm pretty sure I watched with my grandmother at some point or another. But there are a couple of things that kind of run together. So there's another movie called Space Truckers.
Okay.
Space Truckers was made almost a little over 10 years later, in 1996. But it has, what is his name? His name, God. Yeah. That guy.
Oh, wow. It's got a few. So I'm seeing Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper is the one. Stephen Dorff. Dennis Hopper
Dorff is the other. Yeah.
Yeah. Big main one. And it is schlocky and dumb and fun. It's definitely not as good as Ice Pirates, but it's one of those movies that sort of lodged itself in my brain as like confusing some of those scenes together, you know?
Yeah.
There's Space Raiders in 1983. That was another kind of one. And then the other one is like The Last Starfighter, right? So
right. Yeah.
The Last Starfighter, I'm not real sure belongs on the list because it falls into that sort of Disney category of like, okay, maybe we're not going to spend a huge budget on this, but like Last Starfighter and the Explorers, like kids going into space and saving the universe and all that stuff. And I don't think they were big box office deals, but I don't know if
Flight of the Navigator took off.
Yeah,
that
one
was
too.
Gigantic.
Yeah.
E.T. was gigantic.
Yeah.
Those Spielberg. I think Last Starfighter had a pretty solid theatrical run.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's not B sci-fi, but it really did have a right. Like it really kind of depends on again how we're breaking it down. Are we breaking it down by production and film quality? Were they not shooting on Panasonics, therefore it's BCom? Like they could be that kind of thing.
Well, that's a good point.
This was a high quality film, and it was well budgeted and it was well produced. So I love it. It is not mainstream sci-fi. It's second level sci-fi. So I consider second level sci-fi to be high quality but different level. Enemy Mine. Last Starfighter. Good point. This is sort of like the A- category for me. Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to go quite B because Enemy Mine also made my list of, oh my God, it's such a good film. I just love that. This is one I've seen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr. And I mean,
right, and that cast alone tells you this isn't B list.
No,
right? Like you have A-list actors. In
1985 Enemy Mine, and that one made it's I think your wife actually, Katie, she mentioned on my Facebook, like, sci-fi movies that made you think about the situation,
right,
and stuff like.
I did the actual education process there. Yeah,
she sort of put it in the category of District 9, and I agree with that. I think that's a very interesting parallel. So yeah, I don't know. I struggle with the idea of Enemy Mine being on a B movie list. I don't know that it is.
And I think that was the point I was trying to make. I would not put it on a B movie list because I think it was just a not popcorn sci-fi film. And there's a lot of those, right? Every year those come out. Like there's some really amazing sci-fi films that maybe it's not this Independence Day blockbuster explosion, but they're still really solid sci-fi. So The Arrival, right? That's another one that was like, that's A-list actor.
Charlie Sheen.
A-list, Yeah,
exactly. I mean, doing my research, The Arrival came up quite a bit, and I continually dismissed it, and then I had to ask myself, why am I dismissing this? And I think it's just exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah.
How about you? What came up on your list?
So I mentioned Flash Gordon, right?
Yeah.
But Last Starfighter was one that I was thinking about. I also came to Starman, and Starman this is one of those films that I point to because it was one of the first sci-fi films I saw as a kid with my parents that wasn't Star Wars. So I saw Return of the Jedi in the theater, and I knew Star Wars before that, and I knew Empire Strikes Back before that. So like I was very, very, very small when I first got into Star Wars, and I thought that's what all sci-fi was. Didn't realize it was this genre-changing inspiration. So whenever I heard Star in any film whatsoever, I was like, I'm going to watch that. I'm going to be totally part of that. And Starman is a guy who wakes up one day and says that he's from a different planet.
Yeah.
It's played by Jeff Bridges.
Yep.
And was a really amazing, and at the time as a child, super boring film. Super boring. There was no lasers. There was no lightsabers. There was no alien attacks. But I remembered the car driving scene the most, and it became a part of like my family's dialect.
Yeah.
Right. Green means go, red means stop, yellow goes very, very fast.
Yep.
He's learning to drive. But like I still have his mannerisms. I still remember when he would smile, go ha. And like that would be how he's like trying to imitate laugh. And so like so many times I would see Jeff Bridges in other films afterwards and see him do his reactions, even in Tron.
Yeah.
As
he
Flynn
does that sort
Tron.
of chin lift, head cock.
Just
thing.
And just something like, oh, that just seems like he's trying to human and not doing it well. Ha. Right. And then they did Starman in Galaxy Quest. Like that was the exact thing that they were that the alien creatures were doing. So like I was able to pick it out right away. But like when I call it and every time I say Starman, people go, what now? Like it's not a familiar film. Enemy Mine, I would say, has the same kind of reaction. I probably 1 out of 6 people I know recognize Enemy Mine when I mention it. So I put that on the list. It was great production quality. It was really well made. It did probably have a theatrical run that wasn't just straight to video, but it did not have a following.
It didn't. And so I put that in a similar category with Cocoon and Batteries Not Included.
I love that you put those two together because I immediately pair those films.
Yeah. So to me, it's like Starman is in that category.
Okay. So comedy film that's sci-fi,
not necessarily adjacent. Comedy, because I mean it has some funny moments, but it's a little bit
included in Cocoon are like comedy films that have sci-fi elements. That
but Cocoon definitely has a little bit more like heartfelt stuff too.
Sure.
And Starman, I felt, was more drama than comedy.
Yes, I would absolutely agree with that. Yeah, K-Pax level, right? Like K-Pax was like the second version of Starman. It was almost identical plot line.
Yeah.
And again, I would love to list K-Pax in this film, but that is not B sci-fi. That was A-list. That was an A-list sci-fi film. It was just a dramatic version of it.
Yeah. Exactly.
We did talk about Flash Gordon. Another one that I wanted to bring up was not a film, actually, but I put it in there because I wanted to make sure I was getting it right. It was my test to the waters, and it was Buck Rogers. Buck Rogers in the 25th and a half century, and like old school sci-fi series.
Yeah, that's old,
but wicked, campy, and corny 70s style.
I'm gonna allow it, okay. But it was a big part of the culture. Like that was almost Star Wars level for them.
It does. I mean, I get that totally adds up.
But for us,
it's before our time, right? like there is. I recognize that there is an entire new generation of people now. Like there is a whole culture of film that we were introduced to because that was what our parents were into. That isn't happening. Like I've not introduced my kids to Buck Rogers. I'm not going to.
No,
they have their own thing.
Yeah,
and I have my own thing. I have the things that I do want them to show. Eventually, I will show the kids The Matrix. They're going to call it boring and slow, which blows my mind because of how intense and changing it was. But that's going to be like our thing. You just lost your head. How did you do that? Your head is gone.
Oh my God. What the hell?
Everything else was there. Neck, shoulders, and even the gap.
It's a sci-fi. It was special effects.
Yeah, so okay, what was the last one I wanted to talk about? It was Kevin Sorbo.
Kevin Sorbo.
I mean, you could just call all sorts of things from Kevin Sorbo. There was a
He didn't do a lot of sci-fi though. He did mostly fantasy.
his was fantasy and like sword and sorcery adjacent.
Yeah.
Right? Not
Yeah.
quite Conan, but like the
Right.
an updated version. Yeah, I mean those are the ones that jump out the most. They're one of the ones I was going to bring up before the monster rules, and I was just going to make a fun conversation around it. Was
Sure.
The film that succeeded and like revitalized the concept of B horror films. Whereas originally, when I would think of B horror films, I would just consider them films that didn't make it, films that couldn't get the budget that they wanted, and they just made it anyway. They made it with what they had, and then Sharknado came around,
Right.
and there's this whole genre of like, oh, we can just make shit films.
Yeah.
Like, let's just do that. There's an appetite for those. And so there's an entire pile of movies that got slapped on afterwards, which I think we actually talked about a little bit last week.
Yeah. Sorry to inform you that there's a pile of shit movies that came well before that.
Oh yeah.
By the same company.
Yeah.
And then at you actually, I can't remember the name, which is earth-shattering to me, that was in charge of these shitty low-budget like knockoff films.
Yeah.
Before Asylum, it was they did Masters of the Universe. They did God, I can't think of them. You look them up and like they did all these really shitty low-budget movies of the time, and it was really like, here's this, make it work, I don't care, it's going to make money, blah blah blah, and we don't care about safety, we don't care about any of that. It just make the movie and get it done in 12 days or whatever.
Right.
But while you look that up,
I'm looking at it right now. Yep, just searching.
While you look that up, we are going to go pay some bills. So we'll be right back after these not important messages. So stick around. Okay. So I have some. Are you still looking that up?
I just found it. Yeah, I didn't find the production company. 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, by the way. Yeah. But this is Dolph Lundgren as He-Man.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I struggled with putting that on there. I mean, it kind of belongs and it kind of doesn't. I don't know. It's a little bit more. I don't know. Let me get into some of the ones on my list of that are terrible, that are so bad they're boring, and please stop this now.
Okay.
RoboCop 3 and 4.
Oh, wow. Okay. But not RoboCop 1 and 2?
No.
Okay.
They were too successful and too kind of big into their thing, But so RoboCop 1 and 2, or 3 and 4. And then they did some things after that as well, which was really, really, it just goes downhill. It's not a good thing. But Robot Jocks, you familiar with this?
No.
2002. It is making mechs boring.
Making mechs boring?
Yeah, it's mech fighting.
Robot
Jocks. It sounds like it should be great, and it is not at all good in any way. I can't get there. It's 1989.
Okay.
Not 2002. I don't know why I said that. Is there a 2002 remake?
Well, there was Real Steel.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
That was a bitchin' movie, by the way.
It was. That was good. That does
that
not qualify as a B movie. Because Rollerball has remakes.
That's true.
So Rollerball, the first one was in 1975, and that's the one I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's the one that is actually the remake was in 2002, not Robot Jox. Robot Jox was 1989. And because the roller and the robot and the R's, and I get
I got it.
confused.
Yeah, no, they crap on crap start with a different letter.
Yeah. Highlander 2, I mentioned in
Yeah.
previous episode. That's there. And then this one, I think I had just blocked out of my memory.
Just memory. Like, don't ever.
I had forgotten it. A friend of mine recently texted me and said, "Hey, we just saw this movie and we made me think of you. Have you seen Samurai Cop?" I'm like, "Oh my God, yes, I have." And oh my God.
It's a sci-fi film, Samurai Cop.
Samurai Cop. And it is awful. So it's in that age where to sell shitty low budget movies, you had to show boobs and or gore.
Okay.
And or like fight sequences with no safety.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this hits all three. Gratuitously. But you would think that would work, but it kind of does and it kind of doesn't. I don't know. It's in between, but it's like, I at the time I loved it. At the time 20, 30 years ago, I thought it was amazing. As in like shitty but enjoyable. Now I'm conflicted. I think that was probably not okay.
Good God, that's a lot of movies.
Yeah.
So I looked up the Canon Group.
Canon, yes, that's it.
Yeah, there's
Canon.
a list of Canon Group films, and they had a couple of mergers back and forth with Gull and Globus, as well as Globus Pierce, depending on how they're splitting them up. But I just went through like an entire list of probably 30 films between 1974 and 1978. Then there's another dozen for 1979. And then the 1980s show up, and I'm looking at so far 300 films.
Yeah.
Like they just
loaded.
They just made everything.
They were the asylum of the 80s, for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's so funny. I like just scanning real fast.
Yeah, so name them off.
I was looking some crazy names, like The Kitchen Toto and Tough Guys Don't Dance. But as I'm just doing a quick scan, my eyes are immediately going to films that I'm looking at that says The Frog Prince and Puss in Boots. I see Red Riding Hood, Snow White, and then Platoon Leader and Do in Time on Planet Earth.
Wow.
And then Messenger of Death and The Raggedy Ronnie, and there's The Hero and the Terror, Chuck Norris starring that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see Sinbad of the Seven Seas.
Oh, yeah.
Sinbad of the Seven Seas was Lou Ferrigno. I have heard of that one.
Yep.
It looks like the American Ninjas belong to them. Mm-hmm. And then there's a Hansel and Gretel. It's like, holy crap. They just got Bloodsport. Holy shit, Bloodsport's theirs.
Yeah.
That's great. So
when you do that many movies, some of them are going to be okay.
You're going to land one or something. But yeah, Masters of the Universe, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
Yeah.
I can't believe we didn't put that on this list.
Damn near. It's Superman, so I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I guess a superhero, but like not quite B sci-fi.
It was pretty fucking B though. But it just had such a huge like distribution. It's hard to justify as a beat, but holy shit, is that movie the worst?
Yeah, man, it was bad. Yeah, I could keep going. Like I said, the list goes on forever, and they just kept putting them out. Like I see Othello and Aladdin and Assassination right after that.
Yep.
So yeah, that's
they had it all. Okay, so let's talk about Saturn 3. Saturn 3 is kind of a classic, and it's one that not a lot of people remember.
Does that make it a classic then?
Well,
Does that qualify?
I don't know. It is. It is. I think it is. I mean, I don't know. It's Kirk Douglas, you know?
Okay.
It's Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett and Harvey Keitel and gosh, who else? It's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of
cast.
Yeah, crazy. It's what 1980, you know, it's after Star Wars. Kirk Douglas was still kind of on his way out as the sort of Obi-Wan.
And Kirk Douglas was old in 1980. I forget how old that dude really was.
Yeah.
Right? Like I grew up with him watching 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and a dozen other Disney films. And I was like, oh, that guy's all right. And then I saw him later on. I'm like, whoa, he got really old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I saw him actually get old. And I was like, oh my God.
Okay, so let's move
Saturn
on from
3.
that.
No.
Saturn
Let's get back to this. Why Saturn 3? What makes this classic? That we haven't really talked about the love of the films. We've just kind of been identifying them at the moment.
Yeah, I know. To be honest, I don't really remember Saturn 3 too much.
But you know what?
It's 1983, but it's like you bring it up. I remember seeing it as a kid. I probably haven't seen it since I was 11.
Sure.
But it was one that stuck with me because of Kirk Douglas and and the robot. I mean, the robot's kind of interesting in the thing. I don't know. Maybe it's not as great as I remember it.
But you remember it. And I think that's the point that I wanted to bring up. I do not remember all or most of Starman. And most of the films we're going to talk about that we may or may not have seen, we're going to remember a thing or two about it. Now, I got really intrigued when you talked about watching these movies with your grandma, because like now the nostalgia has like a backstory to it. Like you have a reason to be nostalgic about them, which is really cool. But what I would love to hear is the things that you remember about the films that you like. So you mentioned Ice Pirates earlier. What's your favorite memory from Ice Pirates?
The discovery of the space herpy.
Okay.
Like that's a scene that like you can look that up on YouTube. Like it is a poignant, memorable, lodged in your brain. What?
Did you get it as a kid, like what a space herpes was?
Not at all.
Okay,
not at all. You know, no way. So, one
of my earliest memories of seeing something out of context and that just being how it was for the longest time was being 6 years old. At my neighbor's house, who was my babysitters taking care of us, and I couldn't sleep because it was too hot. And I wasn't 6. I'm sorry. I was 4. This was before I even moved to Colorado. This was in Hawaii. Very, very small. And so I remember like orange shag carpet going out to this brown like rope-like couch. And I looked over their shoulder because I was going to ask them a question, and they were watching a TV show. And what happened was it was a city, I guessed New York, and the camera was sitting on a manhole cover in the street, and the manhole cover flew out of the ground and a alligator came up, and it was the biggest alligator I've ever seen. It was half the size of a car, and it bit at somebody and grabbed them and pulled them slowly down into the sewer. It was huge. It like left a big hole. It was bigger than the manhole cover came out, and I flipped my shit. I was like, "Oh, what is this? I can't watch this. It's scary." And they turned around like, "Why are you up and whatnot?" The movie is called Gator. I believe it is a horror film from not much before that. It's probably late 70s. Never went back to watch it again. But I like have this like clear memory of this faded yellow fuzzy screen, right? That was the 1980s turn dial TV. Seeing Gator on there.
Oh yeah.
And just like recognize that like images get seared into my brain. It, like
they do
out of context. So
I have a scene from Silver Bullet that is very similar. I'm not going to get into that in this episode, but
okay.
Silver Bullet's a werewolf movie if you're not caught up on that, but we'll get to that. But yeah, it's another one of those where I walked out because I was not sleeping or whatever, and caught my parents and my uncle watching a horror movie, and it was horrifying.
So what about Saturn 3? You mentioned the robot, which I've taken a couple of pics of. Look at, and like he had his own poster. The robot was so a big part of the deal. Like he had the actual film poster. The whole thing is just the robot.
Yeah. I'm going to move on from Saturn 3 because, like I say, I don't really remember a whole lot of it. I just remember it being sort of like a lodged thing. But what I do want to move on to is kind of a series of different films. Because one thing that we're not going to talk about is necessarily sequels. Because a lot of times, come on, sequels
typically
end up being on the shit list. And it just is. There's too many of them.
You just don't get the budget behind it, right? And
yeah.
It turns into its own crap.
Yeah. So, but we do have a few movies that just sort of lodge there and it kind of works. So, and the ones that I'm thinking of right now are, let's see here. Where is it? So Trancers, I mentioned that in the last one. It was 1984, and then Trancers 2. And there's a few sequels to that. I think that there might be a Trancers 3. I don't remember. But Trancers is one of those Charlie Band movies. It's in the future. It's maybe I forget. Maybe it's a different planet. The main character's named Jack Death. He's amazing.
But what's his job?
Yeah.
What does he do?
And it's kind of in the vein of, oh God. I mean, it's not Blade Runner, but they're kind of trying to be Blade Runner a little bit.
Okay.
And it's just a terrible movie, and it's so fun. It's I don't know. That's one of those where Terror Vision also comes to mind, 1986. Where, oh God, I mean, I'm realizing I have very little memory of that movie.
I was like, everything just went really quiet. What happened?
Yeah.
He's staring at me.
Because I know I've seen it like twice. But yeah, okay, we'll skip that one. It's one you should check out. Terror Vision. Look at the reviews.
When you say should check out, explain this to me. Is this something that would be better for us to watch together because I can experience your memories again? Or Maybe. Is this something that will impact me enough that I would be able to generate my own memories from it? Because I got a Netflix list that's like 80 things long, and I'm still not through Altered Carbon right now. So how important is this?
This is like, when I say you should check it out, I'm not saying put it on your Netflix list.
Okay.
I'm saying as a special project, if you're interested in this particular subject, this is an example of what you should watch.
I just heard you say, if you love me, then you'd care.
Okay.
That's fair
enough. Okay. Again, a few of these movies on my list, they're on the border of different genres.
You didn't tell me that Trancers 2 had Helen Hunt. That's all you had to say. Just say it's got Helen Hunt, and I'm watching it. That's all it takes for me.
They didn't fail hard. Had some great stuff, Videodrome, very similarly. God, Videodrome. Let me look that one up because I know that one is a classic. Videodrome. That I haven't seen in probably 15 years. Oh God. This is Cronenberg. So that's the other thing, is that there's a lot of these movies that are David Cronenberg movies. Mm-hmm. And so Videodrome is James Woods. And, it's this sort of, I don't know if. So you had the Playboy channel when you were growing up, right? And maybe you didn't, but
I mean, not actually. But
there is these. When you had a cable box, there was push buttons on the cable box, and we found out that if you push channel 14 and channel 12 together, you get channel 13 in like a snowy black and white, but you can still make it out kind of thing. Well, that's kind of only if you could make that color and hazy. That's kind of what I'm reminded of Videodrome. Like there's this like adult entertainment thing, and they're looking for different podcasts, or not podcasts, but like broadcasts, and like they take control of your mind. And yeah, I mean, it's Debbie Harry and God,
You said James Woods, right? He's
James Woods. Yeah. So that's that one. Now, one that did make the list that was amazing, I do think it's B movie, John Carpenter, but it ended up being one of the most important and most relevant movies recently. They Live.
Oh, sure.
Roddy Piper. Yeah. And wow. You know, that's another one of those where clearly it's a B movie. Like it wasn't really high special effects, but it had a message, and John Carpenter didn't need a big budget. He knew exactly what he was doing.
It really well told story. They Live is one of those that so I actually have seen this one, so I can speak to this from experience. I really appreciate They Live in the fact that it holds up.
Yeah.
And there are so few films, and I would argue very few, especially of tonight, of the movies we're talking about, that will hold up. It's dated. It's a dated film, so you see people in their 80s fashion being their 80s way, but the message and the delivery of the message still absolutely stays relevant and will hold up today. And it is an enjoyable watch, not in the cult film Rocky Horror Picture Show sort of way. It actually is like you root for the hero and want to see the bad guys go down. It's that kind of movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's got some of the best lines that is cemented in pop culture. It's just, yeah. So that's gold. And like you said, I think this is one that it's like I watch every 10 years and go, oh my God, right. This movie is so good. Yeah.
So I'm trying to, you just reminded me, because I remembered I didn't see They Live as a kid. I only saw it as an adult. And so it was already 15 years old when I saw it, and out of the in vogue. So we were going to make fun of it. And I was like, actually I held out. It was pretty good. Right. But the first, what felt like a B movie to me when I saw it as a kid, was Buckaroo Banzai.
And that You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I think that really, really fits into this. And I was young when I saw that one, and I was absolutely creeped out. Like I had fever dreams that like kept bringing back Buckaroo Banzai for me. But it was one of those that I realized the thing that frustrated me the most, or scared me, honestly, the most about it when I was trying to watch it, was I couldn't get it. Star Wars, I knew who the good guy was. I knew who the bad guy was. I could see the blue and the red lightsabers, and it totally made sense.
Yeah.
And Buckaroo Banzai, I was like, I can't.
It's not really
they're helping. They're
kids
not
are going
to
get.
What side is he on? Right. He seems like he's the good guy because we see him the most, but he does bad guy things. And I couldn't justify it. And so it really broke my sense of.
It's definitely more of a grown up humor. I mean, I didn't see it until I was in college. Yeah. And it was awesome. I mean, to me, the end, the credit roll is a curtain call. So They have this, all the characters are walking forward, and it's just amazing homage to a curtain call. And you're not wrong. That is definitely B movie, and they were trying to be B movie.
Right.
So they knew what they were doing, and they went for it, and they got it. And I would lump Sing String Samurai in the same thing, but that's more of in that sort of end of the world genre. So I would lump it into that other category.
Sure.
But
yeah.
But there's a couple others that I'm thinking about. Like, okay, so there's a few movies. These are three movies that I always blend together, but they're movies that I remember being pivotal in the industry. Scanners, Brainscan, and Brainstorm. Now, Scanners is the one that is pivotal, but the other two, Brainstorm, it comes, I believe, after 2 years later. I think Scanners is 1981. Yeah, and then Brainstorm is 1983. And then there's Brainscan in 1994, which is from there, like Brainscan and Circuitry Man also starts to blend in, and Circuitry Man is 1990. And that, I mean, now we're getting into like Lawnmower Man shit.
Right. Yeah, I was going to mention that one, but that one had way too high of a budget and way too big of a
Lawnmower Man,
because of what it did with technology, right? They were able to really
that's right.
Play
that's
that.
Right. Lawnmower Man really deserves to be on the list, but it can't be because it was too big. It was like The Matrix.
Yeah.
But holy shit, what does that a terror? It does not. You don't talk about movies that do not hold up. That is a movie that does not hold up.
Good Lord.
But there was a sequel.
Sure was.
Lawnmower Man 2, Beyond Cyberspace, 1996. And that deserves to be on the list. And guess what? It's on the list of shit movies that I hate that are too boring to watch. Yeah.
That's got to be a short list, because there's a lot of shit movies that you really love to watch.
It's longer than you might think. So honestly, most of Asylum movies, I just can't.
Sure.
I mean, you got Alien versus Hunter in 2007. There is Transmorphers. I mentioned that earlier. There's just a bunch of those where they're just trying and it's a paycheck and it just doesn't work out. And it's not until they got into the shark stuff that they really started to hit like a rhythm.
And I part of that I feel like is because they were making content. They weren't just cloning content, right? It's the clones. You're like, I don't need to see a knockoff. I can see the real goddamn thing, and it was fine. And I'm not interested.
They got into their creature features, then they started to make stuff that was actually enjoyable to watch.
Yeah,
they were still shit, but I still had a lot of fun.
Because no one else is making that. Right? Yeah. Again, shit or not, you're like, I'm not going to see this anywhere else.
Yeah. And it was, again, I mean, honestly, they got Debbie, like the 1980s pop singer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She's in some, or one or whatever. They got Steve Urkel, the guy who played Steve Urkel.
Yeah. He's all white.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. A lot of theirs, there again, I mean, there is a bar for me. And that bar is, am I bored? Like, are we not getting to the good stuff? It's
a solid bar,
and it's a pacing thing. And all you got to do is hit the beat. If you hit the beat with a visual or something, a joke, a good joke, whatever.
Can I use this as a segue?
Yeah,
because I've been dying to find a time to talk about the things that I love the most as the homage to the B films that do it so much better than any of them magically did with John Carpenter or scientifically did with whatever films that they were trying to pull out.
Okay,
Turbo Kid and Kung Fury.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So they were very, very clear in what they were doing. Right. We know what you come from. We know what you're looking for. And they did all the research on these crazy films that we're going over, all the Asylum shit, all the Canon Group films.
You know what's interesting about those types of films, or those two films in particular, is that once upon a time you would have called them uh, spoofs
Yeah.
or parody films, but they aren't. They're not spoofs. They're homage. I like the word you chose, homage.
Yeah.
They were like, we're gonna do this genre and we're gonna hit all those notes, but we're not gonna in joke, tongue in cheek, make fun of ourselves. Like, we're gonna make a movie in the style of that.
Right. Right. So the characters they're not in on the joke. Right. And I think that's what made both of them work. Like
Yeah.
they're not going like, oh, pew pew pew, because they realize it's fake lasers. That's freaking
Yeah.
Mel Brooks shit. Like they owned it. They're like, we're gonna do this thing as hard as possible, but it's a comedy.
Yeah.
And so they kept their parts of it, and it was so good because it really gave you as the audience the full level of enjoyment. I still go back to Kung Fury, and I've seen that probably 5 times now, and I'm like, I don't get this shit. Like, where the hell does Thor come from? What is that all about? But I don't care, because that old dude was ripped as fuck and knows it and owns it. And he's like, yo, check these out. It's
Yeah.
like so good because you're owning the fact that you are a sword and sorcery in a completely wrong genre, but it all plays together. Like it's
We need
it's
to
such a
have
good joke.
We need to have Matt Vancel on the show when we talk about sword and sorcery,
Oh man.
and we need to have him on the conversation about Kung Fury, because that in particular, Matt and I did a lot of research for a film that we still haven't done yet, and that we're still kind of wanting to do. Maybe Ben also wants to do this, and he's got some great stuff too. But in the research, we watched, God, I want to say that list was over 64 films
Oh my god.
of
That's a
sword and sandal, sword and sorcery, sword and thong, whatever you want to call it. Holy shit.
there's a lot of them.
That's why I split that in its own category, because there are at least 64 of them before we get into even the more main stuff like Spartacus,
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, that's a time for another tale. But the lasers and the space things and the lizards and whatever, like, turns out there's precedent for that.
So I just want to go back to Turbo Kid. I talked about Kung Fury.
Please do.
Turbo Kid was 100% the 80s sci-fi film that I acted out as a kid. That's what that film was to me. It was so much the like, oh, this was me playing make-believe. This was me running around with my stick guns and my made-up cars and my robot best friends. And so when I watch it, like, I am literally just feeling glee as a kid the whole time I'm going through it, because they're like, oh, they get it. Oh, they get it. Oh, that's what it would happen. And like the exploding heads of the gunshots.
Oh my God.
Just like maybe it's a little over the top gore, but like, no, but that's what it was in my head.
Yes.
Like, it was.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's worth, I mean, and again, like, yeah, it belongs on the B movie list because that's what they are going for.
Right.
But they are also doing this homage. So it makes it sort of elevated. It sort of brings it up above that, but I don't think they're ever going to get any more recognition among like above B movie,
It was one of those things that really, really made me appreciate Netflix when I saw it, because I was like, I would never have seen this movie. This would go straight to DVD or straight to video, and I wouldn't have picked it up because I would have been looking for the greatest release of something that came from the theaters. It would have just hidden from me. So the fact that it was straight to streaming and was just this gem, I'm so grateful for it. I really, really like that show so much. And when I can talk with you about it and like people that related to, because you introduced me to it, you said, have you seen Turbo Kid yet? And like, why have I not? And like, everything was better. But being able to have that conversation and be able to share that experience again, because when we were kids and playing together, not with each other, but with our kids, our friends as kids, right? We all were having the same game. We're all seeing the same thing. So to come back to it and like real recognize that it's not just my nostalgia for this particular situation, but it really is like bringing back that kid experience.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Stranger Things does.
Just going to say that.
You know?
Yeah.
And because I think they are so related in what they're trying to accomplish, and that 80s synth, like the music is as important as everything else that they're doing. It's incredible. Well, we're going to take another break. We're going to pay some bills and the devil and whatever, and listen to some shit ads. So please stick around. Don't turn us off. And we'll be right back because we're going to talk about some amazing stuff like, oh gosh, let's see here. What's on my list?
Sell it hard. Here we go.
Yeah.
Keep them listening.
The Toxic Avenger.
Whoa.
Critters. Cube. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and Life Force. So stay tuned. Okay, so I'm going to lead off with Life Force.
Okay.
Have you seen this?
No.
Have you even heard of it?
I have not heard of it. This
is one of those few movies that Ben Dobbins and I click right on. We need to have him
really
on the show.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to have this guy on the show. Honestly, he you know, again, the things we really love together, we really, really love together. And that doesn't happen always. There's a few films that we just have diametrically opposed, viewpoints on, but that one is incredible. And so it's space vampires.
Yeah, I was just reading the synopsis while you're explaining. Yeah. So when a space mission involving an American and British astronauts encounter an alien craft, the humanoids within are brought aboard the shuttle. Back on Earth, one of the extraterrestrials, who appears to be a gorgeous woman played by Matilda May, proceeds to suck the life force out of various Londoners, turning the town into a city of roaming half-dead people. When Tom Carlson, a surviving astronaut, realizes what is happening, he sets out to stop the ruthless alien presence.
Space vampires.
Space vampires. Life Force is a good title. I get that now.
It is. And they do it well. They hide it well. They hide this is space vampires very well. Because if they do that, no one's going to fucking watch this movie.
So does the synopsis just like ruin the whole thing? Was it like a reveal situation?
No,
okay.
Not at all. I mean, I guess maybe, but honestly, like when you go and watch this film, I think it's better to go in knowing that it's space vampires. And how do you do a movie about space vampires pretty well? Well, this is a great example of that. It's trippy. It's fun. It's not a campy movie. It is a movie that genuinely tried to do some stuff, and they didn't do it well. But it's still a movie that sits in my psyche. There's like this sort of hazy film look that they do in several of the films, sort of give that sort of distorted reality situation. I don't know. For me, the thing that I still don't understand is why they chose the film cover or the poster cover that they did of the eyeball with the eyelash.
Yeah, with like the weird.
I don't remember. It doesn't stand out to me why that happened. Maybe it's real key and it's obvious when you watch it, but it doesn't come to mind.
It's an interesting poster, but you're right. It doesn't tell you anything about it at all.
You look at that and you're like, oh, that's a space movie.
Right.
That's it. That's like all you get. Life
eyeball
Force,
looking down at Earth.
Yeah.
It's not like Species, right? Species gives you the whole poster.
Yeah, exactly.
Still best movie poster caption of all time, by the way. I will give that. Best caption of all time. 50 years ago, we sent a message into space. This ... is the reply.
Mm-hmm.
Like sold on the poster.
Yep. They did great. And even the Species 2 and Species 3 and recast Species 3, the recast. And, you know, that first one was just so interesting because like this was like, okay, hey, we loved Aliens. Hey, Giger, can you do us another design here? Make it female this time. And it was fun. It was a good film. They did well.
They did well.
It's not a B movie.
Yeah, no.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yeah, so when you mentioned that one right before the break, I was like, really? That sounds pretty monster film.
I know it does. And it is, but they're aliens. They're literally aliens from outer space. I could be argued out of this and put it into the horror genre, and I'd be fine with that. But it is outer space. It's in the title. So just saying.
I mean, all right.
Qualifies on a technicality.
We got Event Horizon. That was outer space too, but like we're crossing lines. Aliens.
Yeah. I have a story about, well, I don't have a story. I have an opinion about Event Horizon, and it is entirely colored by the previous film that I had watched. Which was it Hellraiser 4? I think it's Hellraiser 4.
I think that was about the same time, a couple of years apart, maybe.
Yeah, Bloodline. That's right. So, also known as Hellraiser in Space.
Yep.
And then I watched Event Horizon. Guess what that movie is? Hellraiser in Space.
Yeah.
So I thought it was very, very not, interesting and basically the same film. But I don't know which one came first, and I don't really care. That's just my experience. I've never had a good opinion of Event Horizon because I just watched Hellraiser in Space.
Can I talk about what pissed me off about Event Horizon? I didn't see Hellraiser 4. What pissed me off the most about Event Horizon was that it fucking got me.
Like, oh, really?
It like I had the fear. Like when the movie was done, I was like, oh, the jumps got me. Oh, and like I had a nightmare. I had a couple of nightmares that were Event Horizon. I was like, really? Of all the damn movies I see, Event Horizon's the one I get bad dreams about. Like I got so angry at it. I got angry at Sam Neill. I got angry at everybody. Like I was really upset, but it was like this was not a good movie. This did not have good effects. This did not have good things. You know what had really good things that could have scared me? Blade. Blade had some amazing visuals and some great sounds that should have like scared the shit out of me when I watched it at 11:30 at night. Didn't do it. Another film that did though, that made me uncomfortable and not sleep well, Cube. So when you just mentioned the Cube, I was like, oh, okay, let's get back into this because it was a B film. And when I first rented it, I was convinced it was this high level A film, that this like really good, really big, really flashy. And it was a little more subtle than I wanted it to be. And then people diced and they got completely diced and I watched them fall apart and I was like, ooh, I wasn't ready for that one because I didn't set myself up because they drew me in. Yeah. Great movie though. And
it is.
Despite the uncomfortability that I've had with it, I have evangelized this film and shared it with probably a dozen other people.
It is a film that should be on your must-see of films, that is a representation of its genre, of what it's doing. They do it well. It is a B movie, but it is a great B movie because it is so effective.
It is so effective. And it was, if I recall, this was before the whole torture porn film genre kind of took off, right? This is pre-Saw. And they did it really well. They really, really, like, you had a couple of moments you're like, oh, that was scary and horrible. I get the levels of this, but they didn't keep that going. They didn't try to outdo themselves. They're like, no, you got the scary parts. You know what the threat is.
Yeah. I mean, so it's, Cube is 1997. You
Yeah.
know, there's a lot going on in this time. You know, if you got to remember, Lawnmower Man 2 was 1992, or Lawnmower Man was 1992. Lawnmower Man 2 was 1996. You know, RoboCop sequels were 1993, 94. You know, there's some question.
Mid '90s was some great films. Like I mentioned Blade, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that was a '96, I believe. Independence
Sure.
Day, I think, was '95. There were some really solid, like
Still love Blade.
popcorn movies, and
Yeah.
and some ones that held their own in between. And this was one of them. This one just kind
Mm-hmm.
of peaked and peaked out. And I think it got a lot more. I'm not basing this on facts at all, and I'm not going to bother googling it. But I think it, from my experience, it got a lot more viewership by rentals.
Yeah.
Right, the DVD rentals and the streaming afterwards than it
You
did in
you
actual
toss it
box
out
office.
on the social medias, and it is a movie that stays with people.
Yeah.
Like they remember that one, and that's pretty cool. You know what movie that they also remember in a different way?
What's that?
Barb Wire.
Holy shit. Pamela Anderson,
Pamela Anderson.
action star Barb Wire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally remembered in a very different way. I
Yeah,
will absolutely give you that.
that movie is on my terrible list. Thank you, Kurt Hubert, for reminding me of that. And goddamn you.
God damn you, Kurt.
Um, yeah, that was a piece of shit, and it's too bad. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's not too bad. The comic isn't great either. You know,
Sure.
there's not a lot of redeeming stuff about that.
My favorite my favorite fact about the entire film was that she literally got the tattoo.
Right. Yeah.
She actually tattooed her arm with the barbed wire on it for the film, and now she has that tattoo
Yeah.
and kept going.
And
Right, she got a lot more.
frankly, I do have a lot of respect for Pamela Anderson. I mean, as a person, as someone who's tried everything to make it work.
As a professional, she's a hell of a hustler, and she's
Mhm.
made a pretty good career and name for herself. Success could be, relative depending on what you're looking for success. But I am aware of who she is, so she
Yeah,
has fame for sure.
exactly. Okay, so let's move on to a movie that many people are going to argue with me on this. Um, this is on my "This Movie Sucks" list.
Okay.
It was made in 2013.
Oh, all right.
Europa Report.
Europa Report. I can't even picture a poster on that.
Oh my God.
What is Europa? Like, I know the production company. I immediately see the ferry for Europa, but Europa Report?
Yeah. So look it up. Google it real quick.
All right.
Now, a lot of people, when I put this out there, they're like, "Oh, that wasn't that bad." It was one of the few movies that I've got so angry because of just, I don't know.
You don't know? You got to know.
I'm searching for the word. So it's like the movie that it's trying to set itself up to be. And then they just ignore their own science.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Like their logic is just fucking ridiculous. It's have you seen the YouTube series The Pitch Meetings?
No.
It's on Screen Rant.
Okay, no.
And it's this guy who he's doing a pitch to a producer, right? He's the writer and he's pitching all these well-known famous movies in his like it's funny. You should check one out. But and he plays the producer as well. So it's just him back and forth.
Okay, got it.
And it's really funny. But one of the things that one of his responses is, well, why does that happen? Because the movie has to happen. That's this entire movie. Like, wait, doesn't he have to? No, I need you to get way off my back about the science on this thing. And just because this movie has to happen, it's pretty.
It's like Back to the Future logic. Why is the old scientist friends with the 17-year-old boy?
Oh,
because
no,
we need them to be.
Like,
so that one actually has a reason. Now that I think about it. Yeah.
Here's the one thing that, like, one of the things that I didn't actually shut this off. I didn't actually. I watched it to the end, and I turned it off angry.
Okay.
And it is. They established they have drones. They're on the moon of Europa. They could send a drone to go and drill the ice and check the things and get the readings. And
sure, that's why you're there.
Yeah,
but they don't. They don't do that.
They have to send a human.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's got to happen because there's got to be drama, and there's got to be stakes.
This headline,
despite the fact that we clearly established that we have drones that function here,
they doing the job. I will point out that I really love the jeans level commercial of this title of this article regarding Europa Report. Mm-hmm. So Wrangler, right? Real comfortable jeans. That's with the period after this one. This one has a comma in between those same words. Europa Report is real, flawed, beautiful sci-fi.
Yeah.
So
I think that they're not damning enough in that title, but it is pretty.
Okay.
Yeah, I will give it that. It is pretty.
Man, I have been pissed off at more than a couple of pretty movies. I'm like, you had a great cinematographer and your editor was shit.
Yeah.
Just butchering the stories.
What is that other movie that's kind of like that? Was it Solar Sun? Was it Sun?
What was it about?
It was like, it's a space movie where they have this, they're going to the sun and they're studying it, and they have this I don't know. Let me see if I can find it. Sunshine is the movie I'm talking about. 2007, Danny Boyle. It's got Cillian Murphy. And he's the best part of the film, as he usually is. Chris Evans is in the film, by the way.
Nice.
And they're trying to, they have to reignite the sun is the idea.
Okay.
And it's beautiful.
I think I saw a trailer for that.
Yeah. And it's a very pretty, this probably belongs in the B movie, but they pull it off, and their science isn't aggravating. It's not perfect, but it's not Europa Report. And I feel like these are in the same category. It's
a 77% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
It's a well-loved
They did all right with that. So unlike, I don't know, Apollo 18, did you see that shit?
No, I didn't see that shit. I haven't seen most of this shit. This is impressive.
Jesus Christ. Apollo 18, 2011. So they've got some CGI that they can work with. And it's space spiders on the moon.
All right.
What that is. It's about
disappointing.
The missing mission of Apollo 18, and it's a found footage.
Buddy, you have given me 25, maybe 30 films that we've talked about this whole hour and a half, and I don't want to watch any of these. Like the last time we talked, like I had like a list of things, like the Frog People one.
Yeah.
And a couple others. I was like, I want to come up with this. Like, do you have any that you're like
that really you need to see?
They're gonna make me come back, because like all of these are just like wasting my time now.
All right.
I feel good about saying no to several of your offers. Like, have you seen this one? I'm like, no, I saved time apparently.
That is fair. Okay, so yes, I do. Here, there's a couple of them here that we need to talk about. First off is Abraxas, Guardian of the Universe, 1990, starring Jesse Ventura.
Okay.
Enough said.
Enough said. Wow.
Go watch that shit. It's fun.
Okay. Abraxas Guardian of the Universe.
Yeah.
Got
It
it.
is exactly what you think it is, with Jesse Ventura starring in the 1990s. You've got to have seen this. It's a classic. Barbarella.
Yeah, I know of it. I don't remember if I saw the whole thing.
It's
because I was getting it confused with Barb Wire when Barb Wire first came out. And I was like,
Sure.
I saw this one. Oh no, I didn't.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely. Does it hold up? No. Can you appreciate Star Trek, the original series?
Sure.
And you can appreciate Barbarella, in my opinion. I'm going to get strung up for that. But
I know Barbarella for its following, for sure.
Yeah.
Way more than I know the film. I know it for the fans.
You know, and I got to say, in a way different but similar vein, is Plan 9 from Outer Space and all the Ed Wood shit that he did.
Oh my God.
He deserves some recognition. I don't like any of his films.
Okay.
I just can't get through any of them, but they're a thing. And it's, if you're going to watch any of them, that's the one you should watch.
Okay.
I'm not going to sell that one. The one I am going to sell, but not very well because I haven't seen it in a long time. Someone brought it up in a conversation and I thought, oh shit, yeah, that was awesome. I don't remember it very well. Is Battle Beyond the Stars in 1980. It's a fun ride. Let me see if I can look some interesting stuff up here on that. Battle Beyond the Stars, 1980. Robert Vaughn, Richard Thomas. Not a lot of... John Saxon. That's right. So if you're not familiar with who John Saxon is, he was he was bigger in the early 80s, late 70s. He was in Nightmare on Elm Street. He played the father of Nancy. He was the cop, and that's what I best known him for. Earl Bowen, John Gowans.
John Saxon is familiar. Let me see what else I know him from, because he's got that face of like, okay, I can
Robert Vaughn. I mean, Robert Vaughn's the main like pull to this film.
Okay.
And Battle Beyond the Stars is Roger Corman. So Roger Corman does a lot of these shitty B movies, right? That's what he's famous for.
Right.
And this is one of his better ones. I mean, George Peppard is awesome. If you don't know who George Peppard is, this is our lovely A-Team star, right?
Yeah, the name was familiar to me. That's he was he Face?
No, he was God, why don't I remember it?
Hannibal?
No, he was Hannibal. Yeah, he was Hannibal.
Okay, yeah.
So Battle Beyond the Stars. That one's worth it. Absolutely. These next two, I think they're worth it. They probably deserve to be in the creature feature, but they're aliens and there's alien stuff and there's lasers. So I'm gonna allow it.
G.I. Joe had lasers.
Critters and Critters 2 and Critters 3.
Okay. I'm not going to say I've lost respect for you because I already knew how much of a fan you are for Critters, but still, bro.
Have you seen them?
Yes, I have seen the first one. I have not seen 2 or 3.
Okay, that's your problem.
Oh, is that what it is?
I mean, the first one's great, but the second one is where it picks up.
Really?
Yeah.
Better in the sequel? Okay.
Yep. Critters 2, I think, is where it shines. They kind of fall off after that, but Critters 2 really, I mean, here's the interesting thing. 3 and 4 are a continuation story.
Okay.
Like the first two, they're they're the normal 80s sequel. Like, okay, this happened, and okay, now we got to get this, the family or somebody from the first movie to sort of bring us along in the second, so we have something. 3 and 4, they could have shot together at the same time. It's literally that doesn't mean it's great, but it's a story that they did, and I thought they did well. But Critters 2, the main course, is the best one of the series, in my opinion.
Okay.
You're not coming along with me on that.
I mean, I'm gonna have to watch it with you, I think, because I just even went through some images real quick. I'm like, no, I might have seen this one, though I may have thought that I was watching Gremlins.
That's fair.
Right.
The other movie that I even forget is not a part of this film is Munchies.
Oh yeah.
So Munchies is Howie Mandel. He plays the voice of the little alien creature. And the thing that is most like, so first off, the alien creature is a creeper pervert little sexual assault guy.
Sweet.
Basically. Because that's what they did in the 80s, because it was funny.
No.
Yeah. But the gimmick with that one is if you cut him, each piece becomes a new alien.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so I confused that with Critters, thinking that if you cut the critter, they became two critters, and that's not a thing. But
okay, not a thing.
Yeah.
Critters just die.
Yeah. Here's one I'd be surprised you haven't seen: Iron Sky. 2012, Angelina Jolie. Isn't Angelina Jolie? No, that's Sky Captain.
Iron Sky. Sky Captain, yeah.
Iron Sky is a foreign B movie that was awesome. 2012. It has.
Wow, that poster's
no
intense.
one you would never. Oh, Udo Kier. Yeah, Udo Kier. Is that how you spell it? The guy who always plays a vampire and everything.
Yeah.
Mad scientist. Guy. Yeah.
Okay. It looks like I see Jason Statham on the poster. Is that right?
I don't think that's him.
Iron Sky: The Coming Race. Maybe that's a different film.
They did have a sequel. I haven't seen it yet. The Coming Race. Oh, it's 2019, of course. That's why. Did they get Jason Statham? No, that's Kit Dale.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right. Iron Sky.
Iron Sky. You should watch it. It's a fun ride.
Okay.
It is Nazis on the moon. It's, dinosaurs in Hollow Earth. It's all that, It knows what it's doing. It's awesome. Runaway. Tom Selleck.
Oh, wow. Tom Selleck.
Gene Simmons.
Okay.
Robot Spiders. 1984. Enough said. Go watch that. That's awesome.
All right. I'll watch that one. You got one more? Give me one more before we wrap this up.
Oh, God.
You don't have to. You can say I'm done now.
No.
You can be done now.
I got lots. I mean, I could talk about Crossworlds. I could talk about Hardware. We didn't talk about Forbidden Planet because that's 1956. It's a bit before my time, but I think it probably qualifies.
You just called Planet 9.
I did. I know. I mean, it's sort of, it's in there, I suppose. Starship Troopers is 1997. Of course, we talked about that before.
Great one, Starship Troopers.
And it was a bigger budget, but it was trying to be a B movie, and so I think it counts.
Yeah.
It knew what it was doing. I mentioned the Toxic Avenger. Oh, here's a good one. and really, okay. So I'm going to talk about the Puppet Masters in 1994, and I'm not talking about the one that is by Charlie Band. I'm talking about the aliens that kind of look like stingrays that slap onto your back. This was Donald Sutherland, starring in 1994, the Puppet Masters, and it was this alien thing. It was kind of like Body Snatchers, where these aliens would fly and they kind of look like these stingrays, and they'd slap onto your back, and they, inject something into your spine and can take control of your body.
That sounds awful.
And it was kind of again, I think that was definitely one that I watched with my grandmother, that we had a lot of fun with, probably a rental. So I'm going to leave you with that one. And then the other one, this is one that I'm a little bit, I feel bad that I don't like it. Because I feel like it's a movie, and it's a series of movies that I should be expected to love, and I don't. And that is Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah, no, I'm there with you. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes had like a cartoon and a toys when there was trying to be like a revitalization that happened in the 90s. And I got really stoked for the toys, and I thought the cartoon was decent, but I was really into the toys. And I went and saw the original movie, and I was like, oh, this is garbage.
It's not, it's really boring.
It's really boring. It's super damn slow.
They don't even get to the sort of puppet creature effects. I mean, it's real. Again, they fail on the pacing thing. Okay, so I do want to bring up a couple of, there's a few movies. This is a tease for a future episode that we are going to do, probably closer to Halloween, is around horror films. And the original Halloween, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, classics though they may be, are fucking boring.
Yes.
Their pacing is
not retainable.
I don't know what they were doing. I don't know how that got what it was, but there's a lot of nothing happening for a long time.
Yep.
So we'll talk about that later. But I'm sorry. There are two. I got to talk about two last films, and these are on the god awful list because I feel like that's how we should end this note.
Okay.
I mean, really, we've got some good winners, but we're talking about B movies.
Yeah. So they're gonna go bad first. So what's the worst? The worst? What are we looking at?
Well, I don't know if it's worst. The worst. Well, maybe it is the worst. The worst. Runner up might be Wing Commander.
Wing Commander with Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah.
I got one.
Yeah.
Heard of it.
1999 video game adaptation. Fucking awful. Boring as shit. Bombed at the box office for good reason.
For good reason.
It just was a waste of time.
Even with Matthew Goddard.
Right.
Matthew Lillard. Wrong guy.
Matthew Lillard. Yeah. But I think, especially because of where we are in the alphabet, Zardoz, 1974, Sean Connery in a red baby diaper, basically.
Wow.
And long hair. And oh my God.
Sounds like a film that he would try to buy all the copies of just to make sure it wouldn't be out there any longer.
Yeah, you would think that, but that's what Bill Cosby did with Leonard Part 6.
Holy crap. The pictures are horrifying.
It's worse than I described, is it not?
It is exactly what he's got. Double bandoliers as suspenders over his
It's like diaper,
his red diaper.
It's like,
but he's also got thigh-high boots. He's rocking thigh-high boots with a 6-shooter and a Oh,
It's
this
like a
is
cross
so bad.
between a stripper and a toddler
Yeah. Oh my God.
who's real hairy.
Super hairy. Oh my God, the mustache.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
well,
So
hey,
we're
good on you for making it through that.
yeah. Oh man. That one's got a reputation, I definitely would say. Okay, so that's basically. I mean, like we said, there is a ton of movies we could be talking about. I have more that I haven't mentioned. I'm going to leave us with 6 films that I've never seen that people mentioned to me, and I may or may not watch them. There are at least 2 that I definitely do want to watch. Okay, so
Okay.
here's 6. First one, Space Hunter: Adventures in the Forbidden Zone. This is 1983.
Okay.
Look that up. Now here's one that I'm told is one that will scar you for life, or just as a waste of time forever, and that is Space Zombies Bingo. And
Space Zombies Bingo. That's the 3 words together that make the title.
Space singular, sorry. Space Zombie Bingo.
Oh my God.
1993. And just because it was given to me on a dare, I kind of feel like I need to see it. But yeah. The next one's called The Sand. This is 2015. They literally they make the beach a bloodthirsty monster, but it's the beach. It's not a sand creature. It's the beach.
Wow.
The sand is oh my God.
The sand is sentient.
Shot in 12 days.
Wow.
In 2015. And apparently it is the remake of a 1990s film called Blood Beach. Excuse me, not 1990s, 1980s film, Blood Beach, which I have never heard of. So that's rare. I just want to see that. If you look it up, there's like this, like the sand, and there's goo, and this guy's face is burning off. And I just want to see what they're going to do with that. I don't know. Shot in 12 days. I have respect for that. We did Demon Hunters in 6 days, so, or Demon Hunters 2, I should say. Okay, 3 more to go. These are quick because again, I haven't seen them. I don't know much about them. Wild Zero, 1999.
Wild Zero. Okay.
Wild Zero. I don't know much about that one. This one is, if you're in Walmart or Shopko or maybe a Target, and they have like this clearance bin at the check stand almost, and there's like a collection of DVDs that are like $1 each, right?
Right.
And you pick this one out of that and you take it home, and it's called Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Wow. And I don't think I would grab that at all.
1964, and this is a film that people know about that I did not know about. And then the last one is called Hobgoblins, 1998. Frankly, or 1988. Frankly, I am ashamed that I've never heard of it. It is creature effects and alien hobgoblin puppetry. I don't know. It looks interesting. I'm going to check it out.
And for someone who's such a huge fan of critters, it seems like that's right up your alley.
It is. I'm very ashamed. I mean, because I've seen Ghoulies and Ghoulies 2, and I've seen Troll and Troll 2. I've seen Dolls and Doll Hunter and Doll Man and fucking Puppet Master and all the 9 sequels of that. And I'm kidding. There's not 9, but Hobgoblins. It's called Hobgoblins. I should have heard of that by now, but
I would agree. Yeah, that should have been somehow put into your zone.
Yeah. So, all right. I think we need to end this shit right now.
We could say that about a lot of the movies we just talked about. Hey man, thanks for sharing your love with me.
Hey, thanks for listening to The Early Effect. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so that you get every new episode automatically. If you enjoy the show, please consider joining my Patreon at patreon.com/DonEarly. That's patreon.com/DONEARLY, where you'll get to hear the episodes early and have a say in what we talk about. So that's it for this episode. Tune in next week for board games and the golden age we live in. This is my sign-off.